Okay, in our last video, we went over how to expand a hard drive inside of Kali using the actual Kali operating system and expanding it inside of virtual machine or VirtualBox, my bad. So we're going to be doing the same thing again, but this time we're going to be using a different approach and using Ubuntu as a live OS to go in and do the exact same thing. Now, the reason we want to go over this in both ways is, for one, we know how to do it in the actual operating system itself using tools like gparted, which is great, but sometimes we can't exactly dismount that main partition to expand it for whatever reason, and we have to use an outside tool to be able to do this, because sometimes messing with that main partition does create a few problems inside the OS, and it's not exactly friendly. So using Ubuntu in the live OS form, like we're about to, can help us add some tools to our tool bag to help us in the future. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is, one, we're going to make sure that the virtual machine is shut down and not in a hibernative state. And we can do this by, let's zoom it in here, making sure that it says, like old Kali Fresh right there, powered off. Second thing we're going to do is click on the menu items right next to it, and we're going to go to snapshots and make sure that we have all of our snapshots gone, because remember, regardless of which method we pick, we can't use a snapshot while we're trying to expand the hard drive. And the third thing we're going to do is go up and select tools up at the top and make sure that we, in our drop down menu right here, we select media. And that's in the, let me zoom in so we can see that right there, the little bulleted item right there. We're going to select media. As we can see here, we have our Kali Fresh VMDK or VMI, depending on how you did this. Hard drive selected. Now down at the bottom, let me zoom in and go down. We are at our 100 gigs that we've already done together. We're going to expand this to 120. So once that's put in 120.00 in there, we're going to hit apply, and it's going to expand the actual VMDK, or basically virtual hard drive file that's on the physical host, to a point to where we can actually go in the system here in a second and make sure that we can expand it inside the operating system. Because until we do both of those, remember, we're only going to have whatever it was allocated to before that. So right now it was set at 100. We just changed it to 120. We have not changed it inside the operating system yet. So that means that if we go fire up Kali right now, that it's still only going to be 100 gigs. Well, once this is done resizing the medium is when we'll start going into the operating system and playing around with resizing. While that's going, what we're going to do is select our Kali VM yet again and go into details. That was weird. I don't know if y'all saw that. It just went flash all of a sudden. Now, once our details menu is up, and I just want to make sure details is showing, click on the yellow sprocket for settings up at the top, and we're going to go to storage. Now here, you can see that there is an issue here. Sometimes you may need to close out VirtualBox and reopen it back up. We're going to add, we're going to go back up to the controller SATA. We're going to click right there. Let me zoom in. Add optical drive. It's basically the CD icon with the plus on it. And we're going to add. Now, I have already downloaded my Ubuntu OS, and I've put it in my VMware folder, and I'm going to apply it right there. Wherever you download the Ubuntu OS, and we'll look at it here in a second, where you want to download it from, where you put it on the system is totally up to you. So I'm going to choose that file and leave it right there and click OK. And I'm going to restart my VirtualBox and open it back up, and I'll be right back. Now, after you start back up, you will have to go into BIOS to tell it what order to boot in. Even though we have the hard drive and the DVD or CD-ROM on there, we need to tell the actual machine itself which one to go to first. And for VirtualBox, it's F12, and for virtual machine, it's F2. For VMware. Now we're inside the actual BIOS for this VirtualBox right here, and we're going to move my mouse back in there real quick. I'm going to go down to CD-ROM and hit ++ on the number pad, so that way it moves CD-ROM up to the top. Now, depending on the versioning of your VMware or VirtualBox, depends on the type of BIOS that you're going to see. But generally, the BIOSes pretty much stay the same, and we're going to restart. Okay, so now what's happening is it's booting up into the actual Ubuntu disk itself, the actual CD, even though this is the Kali virtual machine. So Kali's on the hard drive, but Ubuntu's actually on the CD/DVD. And it's doing its best to boot into the actual Ubuntu loading program, like we did when we installed the Kali OS. Very similar. So when it does boot up, we'll have an option to actually run it as a live operating system. Now, what is live? And that's where the operating system actually gets loaded up into the system's RAM itself. So that way it can be ran on a system that doesn't even have a hard drive on it, let's say. So if we want to, we can say try Ubuntu, and that's where it says here, you can try Ubuntu without making any changes to your computer directly from this CD. And that's how we want to run it, because we want to make changes to the hard drive, but not put this operating system on that hard drive. We want to leave Kali alone, the operating system. So we're going to hit on try Ubuntu, and after it loads up, because now this will take a minute, because remember, it's loading up into the RAM itself, and depending on the physical resources of that system, may take a minute. This one I have amped up because I didn't want to slow this lesson down any. All right, so we're in our Ubuntu box. We're inside the live OS, and are we running on the actual hard drive? No. And we can prove this because right now we're going to right click and go into open in terminal. And since we're familiar with gparted, we'll use that, and it does come with Ubuntu. Sudo gparted, and boom, there it is. There's the actual gparted, and we would go through this just like we did inside of Kali when we were doing it there natively. The only difference here is that we're not using the actual Kali operating system that's on that hard drive to do what we're doing right now. So we go to the overall blue, which is that right there. We're going to right click and go to resize or move. And I'm going to move it all. Remember, you want to leave a little bit of a buffer. And then I'm going to say, okay, resize and move that. Now I'm going to move the, I'm going to right click and go to swap off, because I do want that turned off. Now I can resize and move it now. Move it all the way to the end. Leave myself a little bit of buffer. Resize and move. And if it was bigger size, then it would have an issue. But go back to the blue overall, which is SDA2. Go to resize and move and narrow that down a little bit. Resize, move, close that up. And now you see all that unallocated space right next to SDA1. Now, can this be done a little bit tighter as far as maximizing the expansion we did on that hard drive? Sure, absolutely. I just want to leave a little bit of buffer on there. That's just me. So now I'm going to go to ext4 file system, which is SDA1 disk, and I'm going to say expand that out, leave a little bit of a buffer there. And so now this should move us out to 115 gigs. But now I'm going to commit everything. And it's committing to the actual hard drive from the CD, which we're running inside the RAM. So you may notice that it's a little bit easier to do all this because the hard drive itself was not locked because we're not using it. So everything completed, and now we're going to shut down this system and restart it back into Kali and see if it took. Okay, our Kali box has started back up again. Let's go ahead and log back into it. Kali for those that don't remember on this demonstration system here. And now what we're going to do is go and right click on our file system and go down to properties. And right there, I know it's not exactly at 114.6, which was what it was, but it is 112.3. And let's right click, go to open up terminal, and sudo gparted. If I can spell it right, I apologize. Type in our sudo password, open it up, and see that it looks exactly like what we did inside of Ubuntu when we ran it as a live OS. All right, so there are many different reasons why we would want to use a live OS on a physical system or even a virtual machine system. We just witnessed one of them. But take it from me that it could be used for a whole lot more than that. For example, if you know where the username and passwords are in a Windows or a Unix box, you can boot up into that live operating system and go snag you a copy for decryption later on, if you know what I mean. But you can also go in and check out other files, like what's on the specific user's desktop. Let's say somebody locked themselves out of the system and really needs something off of that computer altogether. You could boot into that live OS and basically use that hard drive as if it was an external. These are just different reasons, both good and bad, to be able to use a live operating system on a particular machine. And like we said before, you don't even need the actual hard drive. So let's say you have a computer and for some reason hard drive doesn't work on it, but you got to use the internet or process something for whatever reason. This is definitely one way to do it. Now you would need to be able to, on a physical system, put that ISO file on an actual thumbstick to where it's bootable, or let's say like a CD, DVD, and boot it from there on whatever device that you're using. Anyway, I'm going to put out a few more of these as I think of different things to touch on. Always let me know in the comments below, or wherever, shoot me an email and let me know if there's something in particular that I need to cover. Talk to you later.